Hello and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Sottero. Today we are presenting Microsoft Optimised, our three-step plan for optimizing your Microsoft spend in 2020. It's worth noting that today's presentation is specifically targeted at the UK public sector. Hopefully we'll have lots of information that will be relevant if you're not in the UK public sector, and we certainly will try to provide insight for our international audience and of course the private sector, but I just wanted to make it clear that this is a UK public sector specific presentation. My name is Matt Fisher. I'm the Chief Storyteller here at Sottero, and I've got 15 years experience in the industry. But more importantly for today, I'm joined by my colleague, Dan Whitefield, one of our licensing consultants. Dan, why don't you quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you, Matt. So I am Dan Whitefield, and I've been in the industry for over 10 years as a Microsoft specialist to help customers understand and execute their volume license agreements, and currently as a software asset management consultant to give our customers an insight into their effective licensing and provide recommendations around deployment, future plans, and how to incorporate that into the most cost-effective solutions.
Excellent, thanks Dan. And we'll be hearing a lot more from Dan as the presentation goes on. If you're new to Sottero and you haven't interacted with us before, let me quickly spend 20 seconds introducing you to our organization. We are a provider of hybrid technologies and services for ITAM and SAM. That means we provide a full range of Microsoft license optimization technologies and also services. Dan is one of our team of highly skilled UK-based licensing consultants. And of course, it's not all about Microsoft. Today very much is, but Sottero as a partner can also help with IBM, SAP, Oracle, and your other major vendors as well. We are headquartered in the UK, but we have operations in the USA, in Eastern Europe, and down in Australia as well. And last year, we were very pleased to be recognized as a Customer Choice Award winner on Gartner Peer Insights with the highest rated software asset management solutions. As I said, we have worked with the public sector in the UK since our very beginning in 2007, working across NHS, local government, central government, and other blue light type organizations as well. So let's talk about why we're here today. And really, there are 4 questions that we think you probably need to be asking yourself. And depending on the answers that you come up with, that will probably tell you whether now is a good time to engage with a partner like Sottero to help you take control of your Microsoft spending. Now, the first question potentially sounds blindingly obvious, but actually getting to the answer can be very difficult. And of course, that question is, how much are you spending with Microsoft? It's a mega vendor. There are hundreds of products, thousands of different ways that you could license them. And of course, now you have the additional complexity of whether that spend is on-premise or in the cloud, or perhaps both. So actually getting a view of how much you're spending with Microsoft can be very difficult. You only have to look at HMRC and the MOD to see how they are spending literally hundreds of millions of pounds with Microsoft in many different ways, whether that's E5 licensing, whether it's Office 365, or indeed renewals of enterprise agreements, for example. Then, of course, you want to think about where you're spending it. Now, where could be, is it in the data center or is it on the desktop? Is it end user computing or is it mission critical computing? But of course, it can also be, is it on premise or is it in the cloud? Or if you're a larger organization with a very diversified network, where on the network do you have your Microsoft? Now, as a mega vendor and in this period of change, one of the next questions to ask yourself is, do you know what your options are? The way you licensed things 2 or 3 years ago, that was then. Unfortunately, now your licensing options can be very, very different. And in some ways, that will be a really good thing because there are savings to be made by moving to some of the new licensing schemes. But in other ways, it might be bad news because some of the old ways that you liked perhaps aren't available to you anymore. And that's where the consultants like Dan come in and really help you understand not only what you can and can't do from an obligation point of view, but what you perhaps should or shouldn't do from a cost-effective licensing point of view. And then finally, our fourth question is, could you be doing something more exciting? And again, this is a sort of a double-sided question, if you like. On the one hand, specific to Microsoft, are there some new technologies, new products, new licensing schemes that you should be taking advantage of to really move your use of Microsoft into 2020 and beyond, into the new decade? Or indeed, if we saved a lot of money on Microsoft, could we use that money to go do something altogether more exciting? Could we support any business transformation or digital transformation initiatives you have but currently can't fund because you're still paying a heck of a lot of money for your Microsoft? So 4 questions that hopefully Dan is going to kind of help you answer these for yourselves as we go through the presentation today. Now, why, again, do we think that Microsoft is a big deal? Well, if you've been in software asset management or IT asset management for any period of time, you'll know this 30% figure, but it's worth repeating. And the figure relates to the average or a reasonable saving that an organization should look to achieve in year 1 of implementing software license optimization technologies and services, i.e. within a year of adopting a service to optimize your Microsoft licensing, you should look to save around 30% of that spend. Now, I think most organizations, large and small, could do something with that 30% that would really drive value to your internal stakeholders and, of course, the public, the community that you all serve. So at that point, that's the introduction over with. Hopefully I've set out the business case, if you like, for why we would look at optimizing Microsoft. Now I'm going to hand over to Dan to talk about some of the detail of how we would go about that.
Perfect. So thank you, Matt. And welcome everyone to the Microsoft Optimised webinar. So today I will take you through 3 services that we at Sottero offer to help you save money and get the most out of your Microsoft volume license agreements and purchases in 2020. They will be the Office 365 optimization service that will get results and insights very quickly around your cloud consumption, an on-premises inventory baseline or effective license position, which also includes any Office 365 usage, where we look at all aspects of your Microsoft estate and provide a view on any exposure or overspend, as well as any optimization recommendations. Finally, we have a consolidated multi-environment view. And as part of this, we will have a ELP or an effective license position, and we will also add on Trueup or renewal consultancy services. This will be all the aspects already mentioned as part of an ELP, as well as how to best position yourselves within a Trueup period and any negotiation recommendations that we can offer in your negotiations with Microsoft. So let's start off with the Office 365 optimization. Now, this service incorporates our quickest growing product, which is Sottero for Cloud. And in a Microsoft Office 365 optimization context, we will look specifically at Office 365, how we populate the data within the Sottero platform, and what the benefits are from this. So, as mentioned, the Sottero for Cloud service from a Microsoft context centers around Office 365, and the Sottero platform connects directly with your Microsoft Graph API and pulls down data. We will couple that data with an Active Directory connector to pull information, allowing us to identify users, timestamps, and it will also allow us to identify AD users against Office 365 subscriptions. It will allow you to manage user-based and named user licenses, and it will reconcile with Office 365 directly. Now, there is much more that the platform can do if we incorporate discovery and inventory as well, such as map users to assets and give an overall view of which devices your users connect to and are licensed through your Microsoft subscriptions. However, we will dive into that in more detail within the next section. For this service, we will simply pull the data from the Graph API and optimize without the need for scanning any of your networks or pulling any inventory of your assets or devices. So from the Graph API data, it is used in all sorts of useful ways to help our customers achieve their business goals. It will allow you to view your consumption, save money, and optimize your usage. The important thing to understand around cloud licensing is that generally an organization cannot be under licensed. Now, I caveat that with the fact that I have come across specific customers that have a deal in place with Microsoft as they make the transition to the cloud, that whilst may be beneficial during the transition process, would certainly need some attention and due diligence once that transition is complete. And this would be something that is discussed in more detail as part of a licensing and contract review that we will come onto in more detail later on within this session. For an Office 365 project, we will be able to pull in the data from your Office portal in a matter of hours and start giving optimization recommendations within a matter of days. To perform this, we will be able to help customers identify where they have unallocated Office 365 subscriptions. So that's subscriptions that are available in the Office portal but are still awaiting assignment. We will report where we have identified in AD that particular users are disabled but still have an allocated subscription, and therefore an organization is paying for users no longer active in AD. We can show you where you have Office 365 subscriptions allocated but that have never shown any consumption for all, a mix of, or individual components in Office 365. So by that I mean services such as email, OneDrive, SharePoint, Skype, and Yammer, amongst others. And we will be able to show you where your users have not consumed any of the services for a defined period of time, which could be 30, 60, 90 days, or whatever period suits an organization's particular business needs. We can also show you what activity is reported on any of these services. So what we are seeing as an organization here at Sottero is that when a customer moves to the cloud, they are typically 20 to 30% over licensed. And that is because their starter and leavers policies are lax. They are not removing user licenses which are no longer being consumed, or they have over licensed at the start of the agreement, where with subscription licensing, there is no need to have spare subscriptions. They should be added as and when needed under the relevant volume license agreement. Using all of this information, a customer can then make informed decisions over how they wish to manage their subscriptions. If it would be more cost effective to move to a different subscription, if they could make use of individual subscription components, or if they could reduce the overall number of subscriptions. A benefit of this service and process will be to help an organization improve their internal workflows around starters and leavers, their Active Directory cleanup, and provide a true user count. Now I'm just going to switch into the Sottero for Cloud demo system to show you guys how this can help in a real world example. So here we have an Office 365 dashboard. We have some available subscriptions. And in fact, there we're seeing that the available subscriptions has a 43, nearly £50,000 overspend. Now, if we click into here, we can actually see the platform catches up. But we can see that there is a 94.73 usage of your subscriptions. Now, over 3,000 people have subscriptions for this. There are 207 available. However, if we just pop back in here, we can see that even though that's a good number of subscription allocations, it's still nearly a £50,000 overspend. Okay, so Subscription licenses generally should be managed on the basis that you only use the licenses when you need them. So a new starter should have access to Microsoft products within a matter of hours, or as part of a new starter onboarding process, make sure the workflow for licenses is only launched a matter of days or a couple of weeks before that person starts, so that this level of overspend can be allocated to other parts of the department or business. Okay, so moving back into the presentation, we're going to look at the SAM and ITAM ELP. Now, this service incorporates our flagship products, which are Sottero for Enterprise ITAM and Sottero for Enterprise SAM. We will start with a look into IT asset management with focus on total visibility by discussing network discovery and inventory. From here, we will transition into software asset management. We will look at the software normalization and intelligence, and we will conclude with compliance and optimization discussions. We will then see how this all comes together with a general overview of the platform design and architecture. So starting off with Sottero for Enterprise ITAM. This covers discovery and inventory of Windows, Linux, Unix, and Mac OS. We will also sync into your Active Directory and discover devices on your networks, subnets, SNMP, and segmented zones such as DMZ. We will take your virtualization technology and pull data from there also. That will give you inventory from physical and virtual machines, and also builds up relationships between those physical and virtual machines and identifies the clusters that these machines are part of. Now, this has a big impact on your licensing needs. And as mentioned previously, we will also take data from your cloud computing data sources by connecting to Office 365, Azure, AWS, Google G Suite, amongst others, to show where there is a use of Microsoft technology. Now, computers that are discovered on your networks and subnets are populated directly into the Sottero platform. This will give you a combination of what has been discovered on the network and what has been imported from Active Directory, and you will be able to see against each record when it was first and last discovered on the network and when it last logged into Active Directory. This will give us a list of possible computers to target with the inventory, and we can select assets to either deploy an agent. Typically, a customer would deploy an agent to desktops and laptops, or we have an agentless or remote inventory capability. So we have either or. Now let's have a quick look at the pros and cons of agent and agentless inventory. In terms of inventory, if we have an agent or remote inventory, it's exactly the same. The challenge with desktop estates is that not all of your computers are switched on all of the time. So to perform a remote inventory regularly on all the assets would be limiting. So that's why we recommend customers to deploy the agent to the desktops and laptops, whereas with the server estate and the data center, as the servers then tend to always be switched on, we can capture the data from the server estate without having any impact on the underlying architecture or performance by having agents installed within the servers themselves by using remote inventory. The platform will seamlessly reconcile both agent and agentless sources of data together. Now, the agent is also required for things like software metering and patch management distribution, but from a purely ITAM and SAM perspective, a remote inventory would be fine, particularly around your data center estate. Now, rather than go into the platform every day and target computers, we have the ability to create rules. Once these have been created, the rule would automatically push out an agent to all of the targeted computers. As an overview of the capability of the tool, this would quite easily push the agent out to between 5,000 and 10,000 devices per Sottero instance per day. So the time to value of the solution is very quick. You don't have to manually install the agents everywhere. It's all done automatically. And it's not uncommon for us as an organisation to get 90% coverage within the first 24 to 48 hours on a customer's estate. Now, to show you the power of the platform, I will quickly dive into our system and show you how easily we can target computers for agent deployment. So if we come down to the drop-down menu here on the left, we go to client management and we go to computers. Now, these are the computers within your network. And these ones, just take a set of computers. We can right click there, and from the actions, we can go and deploy the client agent. So that's how quickly we can do that at a few clicks of the buttons. But what is even better is the creation of rules that runs this process automatically. So if we go back into client management, we go into client rules. Here we can set particular criteria. So for these Windows and desktops and laptops, currently they're just for computers with the operating system that is not like server. Okay, so from here we can change that, and we can add Active Directory OU, or we'll come back to the computer. We can see if we can add criteria to say when this has last been logged on to, a multitude of options for deployment of agent or agentless inventory. So moving back to the presentation, all this gives you good hardware and software asset management capabilities, and that brings us into the Sottero for Enterprise SAM space. That starts with the recognition of the software that a particular organization has deployed and finding among that large set of data what is actually licensable. So it normalizes the data, it looks at license metrics, gives you what rights you have to downgrade, cross-grade, which step-ups you have done, when the product goes end of life or end of support, and also the release states of those products. We have a team that runs this service, and it's called the Software Recognition Service, or SRS. So within an effective license position, we will determine your entitlements, and within the Sottero platform itself, there is a functionality to load a Microsoft license statement directly into the platform. As part of that import, one of our consultant team will collaborate with an organization to ensure that there is a true reflection of the licenses that an organization is entitled to. Now, this will be centered around discussions on if there's any acquisitions or divestitures, if there's particular agreements that are for different business units, that sort of thing, to give you a true view of the entitlements that you can use. And the goal of an effective license position is to show an organization where they have an exposure or a surplus of licenses, as well as to make recommendations to optimize what you have deployed against the investment that you have already made, and to have conversations around your future plans and how to get the most cost-effective solution for the infrastructure, virtualization, and desktop solutions that you are looking to or have already deployed. This makes up the final piece around optimization of your license entitlements and the ELP. So next, I would like to talk about the renewal and true-ups that an organization will need to perform on an annual basis as part of an enterprise agreement, an enterprise subscription agreement, or a server and cloud enrollment agreement. Now, part of any of those agreements, Microsoft has a term that states that an organization must have an accurate reflection of what is deployed within their estate and to be licensed effectively, and the changes during a 12-month period will be reported as part of truing up, or possibly truing down in the case of an enterprise subscription agreement, which is why an ELP would be performed. What Sottero can offer in addition to an ELP is impartial advice on what conversations to have with your licensed solution provider, LSP, previously known as a value-added reseller or a VAR, which typically need to be done before the 30 to 60-day anniversary or true-up period, or before the 0 to 30-day period before a renewal. We can also offer advice around what conversations to have as part of the process with the Microsoft account managers within an organization's negotiation of an agreement renewal. Okay, moving on to the next slide, I just want to touch quickly on what differentiates us from our competitors. In a nutshell, that is our architectural advantage. Some years ago, Sottero made the strategic decision to incorporate all of our technology into one platform, and uniquely within the market, we have in-house developers that have created this unified platform and makes any updates, new releases, or bug fixes rapid and streamlined. At Sottero, we do not rely on acquisitions for new technology, and this means that across any of the products or services that we offer, an organization will have a single interface and a single user experience. And that is why our customers can confidently call the Sottero platform their single source of truth. So that brings an end to my overview of Sottero's Microsoft Office 365, ELP and renewal offerings. I hope this has been insightful and provided some value, and I will now hand back over to Matt. Thank you for your time.
Great, thanks for that, Dan. So lots of information for us to get through there. If you would just let me have control of the slides, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And so, as Dan said, what we have here is an opportunity really for you to take control of your Microsoft spend through that, understanding what's being deployed, what entitlements you have, and obviously reconciling those two against each other. But really, why are we doing this? Well, really, there are a number of reasons why you want to tame your Microsoft spend. Obviously, it can relieve financial pressure. Every public sector organization in the UK is under a lot of pressure to spend wisely, to spend responsibly. So on the one hand, you're looking towards actually being more responsible with the spend that you're creating. The second is that there's always more that you want to do than you can actually provide budget for. So if you can make savings in one area, that frees up cash, hopefully, to spend in another area. And of course, I'm sure you're all involved in one way or another with business or digital transformation goals, whether that's simply moving existing workloads into the clouds or becoming a bit more innovative on how systems work together. Again, A, that needs money, and B, it needs fresh thinking. So money can come from reduced spend, and fresh thinking can come from licensing experts like Dan that understand all of the different options available to you. As Dan has just talked about, don't focus just on on-prem or just cloud. See it as a full stack, and make sure that you don't just go for what we might call the usual suspects of things like Visio and project licenses. Actually, you'll find that there's usually much greater savings to be found on Office 365, on SQL licensing, on Windows Server licensing, for example. And then finally, it's an educated guess, but a lot of you will be coming up for your enterprise agreement renewal or a major true up in the next 4 months or so as Microsoft nears its year end. There's a natural spike in the number of organizations, just not just in the UK public sector, that have their renewals at this time of year. Now is the perfect time to be looking at this before you lock yourself into that continued high level of spend for the foreseeable future. Now, we did have a couple of questions come in on the chat function while we were going through the webinar. So Dan, I'm just going to quickly put two of those to you. The first was just to get some clarity on what is Sottero selling. Is it a technology? Is it a service? Is it both? Can you just quickly outline what's involved in the options for the Microsoft Optimised service?
Absolutely. So essentially, this is a customer choice where they can choose whether they want to buy the technology and use it themselves with Sottero's help, with some training maybe, and with some sort of insights into how you run the tool, or you can buy it as a service where consultants like myself will be part of the service delivery, using our technology. But so essentially it's either or, and it's the customer's choice of how they want to go down that route.
Great. And another question, I suspect this is coming from somebody who's perhaps tried to do this before and struggled. How does Sottero actually separate environments like DR from the main sort of ELP creation task?
Good question. So really, DR environments would maybe be aligned to a SQL Server estate, and in those estates, if you have licenses with active software assurance, for example, then you get failover rights. So what we do is collaborate with the customers to get an exclusions list, if you like. So in SQL instances that are for purely DR purposes, and we would exclude them from the ELP. And we would also be looking into customers' development environments where they have a development team that have active Visual Studio licenses with MSDN subscriptions, and we would also look into those development environments and exclude those from an ELP because they are already covered under their Visual Studio licensing.
Excellent, good. Well, nice to know that there's a strong differentiator there, and we can certainly cope with DR environments. So that brings us to the end of the webinar today. Thank you for your attention. If you visit Sottero.com, you will find details of other previous webinars that we've hosted that are now available on demand, as well as some of our future events, both online and in person, that are coming up. There's also a specific section for the UK public sector, simply sottero.com/UKPS, and you'll find a bit more detail there about the services that Dan was outlining today. But for now, thank you for your time and attention over the last half an hour. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and hopefully we will speak to you again soon. So thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.